What is going on, YouTube? I'm doing this review of my custom-built E-11. It was built by my good buddy Haliwax's Basement Builds, and it is based off of an airsoft gun and a bunch of other parts I'll go into when I'm doing the actual review. And I have it displayed on a QuestDesignCanada base because, frankly, this is the only base that I could find that's actually hardy enough to support the weight, because this sucker is heavy, let me tell you. I had tried some of like the acrylic bases. I had sent some messages out to the makers and giving them sort of the approximate weight and dimensions, and they're like, nope, it's not going to work. So here it is. So I'm going to move over into my review space and continue from there. Alright, don't mind the boxes, I just moved in recently, but here we go. So I had picked up the parts of this, I don't know, probably about a month or so ago, or started picking them up. I had told Haliwax that I really wanted a good E11, and I had looked around looking for kits, and I had found like a ready-made one for about 250 bucks. And he was like, listen, if you're going to do an E11, you want an all-metal one. I'm like, it's going to be expensive, but I'll tell you, once you kind of go the all-metal route, there is no going back. You are sold. And that's totally how I feel about this. I absolutely love how this blaster turned out. I don't really think it could be much more accurate than it is. So, like I said, this started its life as a airsoft gun by, I think the website is Evike or Evike, and they just do all airsoft guns. And I got the scope with it. You'll have to forgive me, I forgot the name of the guy who actually sold me the gun, but he sold me the original gun and the scope together. He was trying to get rid of it, and he's gracious enough to give it to me at a pretty good price. And then Haliwax pointed me in the direction of War Machine, the paintball prop site, where I was able to get the power cylinders as well as my Hinksler counter. And then I also ended up replacing the end cap, because I found out that the one that was on the original airsoft gun was wicked inaccurate. The shape was totally wrong, so said, all right, let's see if we can swap it out. And yeah, so that's kind of how it started its life. Haliwax had not done any sort of builds on the E11. He never really thought about it before, and he went to a Stormtrooper forum where he tried finding some information, and they weren't really very much help. For instance, when it came to the ammo here, they basically told him that you're stuck. You need to get a new one. And he and I talked it over, and we decided that he was just going to go for it. He was going to cut into it and see if he could make it work. And even though everybody on that other forum said that it wasn't going to happen, he made it work. And it was quite a process. I think he's going to end up doing a build thread, so I won't go too in-depth into it. But it was, I couldn't believe how well it turned out, especially since everybody said that he wouldn't be able to do it. But son of a gun did it. And then, obviously, we get the Hinksler counter. He wanted to do the bracket system, and he was really mad at me when I said to him, no. If it was glued on in the film, I want to glue it on. And he basically shunned me for a couple days, but, you know, he eventually agreed, and we worked really hard to get that thing right where it should be. So I love the way that it's sitting. To me, it looks just right. And I love that, you know, it's the type of thing that could be knocked off. Even though obviously it never would, and I would certainly never intentionally do that, it has that feel like the actual movie prop, that it was sort of thrown together. And again, Haliwax didn't want to do that. That was all me. He had rigged up a bracket system already, and I said, nah, let's just glue it. Let's keep it real. And then another thing that we discussed doing that I think was kind of unique to this build was that he actually removed the bolts here. Once we had taken the original end cap off, he figured out how to get the bolt out, and the whole thing was sanded down, and we used the aluminum black on it, so it gives that really legit aged look. And then he got it all shoved back in there. He was cursing up a storm about it because it was a pain to get in there, but he managed. And then I picked up Wanawanga's or Roy's T-Tracks because Haliwax swears by them. So I said, all right, we'll go with them. And that was a challenge into itself. And he had to figure out how to get these suckers cut and bent into the grooves. But I think they all ended up looking really good, really even. They all sit perfectly in there. So yeah, I can't imagine a better version of this blaster. To me, it came out perfectly. It was tough too because we couldn't really find a true like hero version of it. You know, some of them have those the coiled cables that connect from the Hinksler counter to the cylinders. Some of them don't have it. Some of them don't have the counter. There are just so many variations on it. So we kind of settled upon an overall look for it. I mean, I even looked into the Rogue One version, seeing if I liked those more, if they were more consistent. And to be honest with you, I really didn't. The New Hope was hands down my favorite version of this blaster. Another thing that he worked on quite a bit too was this bracket going along the top of the gun. The original one that he cut, I wanted it to be a little bit different because, for starters, like I said, I wanted the Hinksler counter glued on there. Also, there was a little bit of slack in how the scope sat on there, so he ended up recutting it, and by this time he nailed it. It is perfect the way it sits on there, and it's screwed securely into that back sight, and then it sits right into one of those vent holes. And then we gave it a quick spray paint, and I actually ended up weathering the sucker. I wanted it to look pretty rough, a little rough around the edges. And unfortunately, I took off the company information off the top of that cylinder, but you know, I have nobody to blame for myself with that. Like I said, this thing is heavy. Too heavy for any of those acrylic stands. And actually, even the QuestDesignCanada stand, because this thing is so heavy with that ammo pouch there, it wants to like tip over a little bit. But I got it worked out. So you never want a troop in this thing, that's for sure. But it is an absolutely awesome replica to have in my collection. And you know, I can't find a better looking one, a better looking solution right now. Like I said, I've seen kits, I've seen finished resin models, and they don't have that same look. And there is something just really unique about feeling the weight of it and everything being the individual parts. I mean, even this still comes out. Let's see if I can get it one-handed. There we go. So I'm still able to remove this. And yeah, I love how everything is still its own piece. Since that end cap is replaced, this one doesn't quite fit on to the point where you can move it back and forth. It looks placed pretty well. Like when you compare it to where the little teeth inside here are, these grooves line up with it. So it seems to be pretty well placed, but this vintage one obviously was just not designed to go onto this modern reimagining. But it still looks good, and I like that now it has the correct profile compared to the one that had originally come on the gun. Sorry to have my fingers all up in the camera. So yeah, that's my review of my Haliwax basement build Stormtrooper E-11 New Hope Blaster. If anybody has any questions, feel free to leave a comment or two. And if anybody wants a similar build, contact Haliwax over on the RPF. Take it easy, guys.